All right, we're back for another episode of the summer series. I've loved doing these with the fellas. George, Adam, good to see you guys.
What's up, man?
Good to see you,
We'll
brother.
we are day 12 of training camp. George, you were out there. What was the vibe like?
It was very,
What day were you there and what was the vibe like?
so I went the Friday, the second day that training camp was available to all the fans, right? So Wednesday was the first day that was closed in the media. Then Thursday was the first day. Then Friday was the day that I went. And Saturday was that gigantic day where like 10K came. That's where I went in that whole cycle. And it was awesome, man. It was a good vibe. I say probably about 3,000 people were there. And, for someone that goes annually, it was night and day. You walked in, it is just so funny because, last year I went and I was part of that, that group of people that had their tailgate chairs that sat out in the grass. It was completely empty and barren. And then you just kind of see these like just epic large bleachers that are basically set up. And like the best way I can describe them is like, I'm sure if you guys go to like a college game, like a college baseball game or like a college like softball game, something like that, they're legit like small venue stadium stands, which is pretty awesome. And it was really cool to see because you walked in and you could tell that they actually had good intentions with what they did. There was an air conditioned store you could walk in and purchase any item that you wanted. Gigantic bleachers. The bleachers lined the entire field, and then on top of the bleachers was a VIP section for if you're a season ticket holder, you can do the business account and you get like 1 day for VIP. And that VIP would be like a covered canopy with like beverages, iced teas, and lemonade. You can watch the practices there. The cool part, though, what I really liked, I think this kind of goes to, I give Joey Socrates credit, even Jason Wright credit, man. Like they really had like a family venue for like the players' family. So you'd walk down. So to the right would be the big the big fan base bleachers, but to the left would be a covered, like climate controlled area for the family. And it was really cool. They kind of got to sit up, watch their family play. They weren't getting a lot of stress by the fans, just kind of sitting back and relaxing. And the last thing I'll say is there's a kid zone. So right by the family area was a kid zone. It was like a mock, like 30-yard field. Kids could throw the football and play catch. There was a commander badge, cornhole. There actually was a cool section for kids to walk up and get autographs too, because it's just a madhouse and people kind of run up and kind of push along the lines. But the kids walked up and 10, 12-year-old kids, they could walk up there and get autographs for the players, and the players did a really good job of approaching the kids. So it was good vibes, man. I had a really good time.
You could tell the difference with the new owner. The new owner was walking around like a rock star, it seemed like.
It was cool, man. The day that I went, Kevin Durant was there, which is pretty awesome. So I kept my eye out for him. He went to the VIP section. I was on the other side. But it was kind of cool. You kind of like, I think JP Finley tweeted it out, and you kind of like the buzz around everyone's got to look around and kind of had that good vibe that Kevin Durant was there. So it's cool. It's definitely positive energy. And you could tell that people are coming out and they want to support this team, which is really good to hear.
Adam, it sounds like the offense is a step behind. I think that's normal in the process, particularly since it's pretty much all new on offense, right? New offensive line, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, essentially. I mean, one game, got new pieces on the offensive line. What do you need to see from the offense in whatever bit they play in the first preseason game to make you feel like we're heading in the right direction?
I guess if we start to see a lot of penalties, a lot of holding, like things like that are going to concern me because it's preseason, but you start seeing like that, those kind of things tend to trickle into the season. Or if you don't see that, they're just flat out getting beat. And, no matter how good Sam Howell can be, if he doesn't get time, he's going to get destroyed. This, impressive enough that he ran in college, but this is not college. If he's expected to run under those conditions and not a lot of, called plays, he's going to have a hard time because you're not 6 foot, 6, 250 pounds, he's on the smaller side. So this offensive line, like right away, they need to show some, cohesion. They need to show some, fundamental, like not the little gaffes that we keep seeing from, teams in the offseason, because it's going to take at least a couple weeks for this offensive line to click on all cylinders. And also you have a new offensive being installed. So I have faith in Eric Bieniemy. That's where I'm coming from. If we didn't have him, I'd feel a lot more nervous. What I think is going to happen is he's going to really set him up for a lot of tempo offense, not a lot of times for defensive lines to set up. So I think that'll give the offensive line time, quick plays, not a whole lot of, 5, 6 step drops, just really getting into the plays quickly, into his reads quickly. I think if they do that, that'll be able to mask some of the deficiencies they have early on. But yeah, man, they need to just show, that they can at least be, counted on to give him, a second and a half, 2 seconds to throw the ball, and you keep hearing from all these media outlets, Mina Kimes, I just shared a thing with her. Like, she really was like, they need to do a lot more RPO than we've ever seen in Washington. For the simple fact is that's I'm comfortable Sam Howell's with, and that is also, that can help an offensive line that's really still getting their bearings. So, we'll see early on. You're not going to see anything in the preseason. So I think, against Arizona week 1, that's my hope that, they'll come out. The first thing we're going to see is an RPO really just getting Sam Howell in space, because he's one of those guys that he's going to look for the pass downfield before he, takes off, to get extra yards. So, a lot of things concern me, but man, I'm excited. I haven't been this excited in a long time.
George, the counterpoint, I guess, with the slow start to the offense is they're going against one of the better defenses in the league. It can't be a bad thing, right?
No, 100%. I think that's the dilemma that we're kind of coming across, right? Like, we don't know how good the defense is and how up and growing the offense is. We can't really tell right now. That's why I think I think the Cleveland game is going to be the first test, but the true test is going to be that Baltimore week and that week 2 against in the preseason game. I do want to see efficiency. I'm kind of on the same path with Adam. The offensive line does concern me. I feel like, Eric Bieniemy is creative. Maybe he can hide that and mask that with quick passes, but I am worried. I think we have a lack of depth there. We're young. We're definitely young with our Braden Daniels and Ricky Stromberg. We have these depth pieces, but they're not ready quite yet. So I am worried that if someone goes down, what's going to happen afterwards. But yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see efficiency with Sam Howell, but going back to the defense, I want to see them against the Ravens too, man. I want to see what happens. We're seeing Emmanuel Forbes getting hands on balls. We're seeing them tip passes and some interceptions from Cam Curl now, which is somewhat abnormal for him. So we're starting to see some chemistry and creativity. And the best part about it, as Adam alluded to, they're not going to game plan too much during the preseason. We're going to see a lot of this week 1 against the Cardinals, which is going to be a lot of fun. So I am anticipating some good things. I think our defense is going to be great. And something I keep hammering home is our defense was strong last year, but in a sense, we're adding 2 elite positions to our defense. We're adding a fresh Chase Young. Hopefully hopefully he brings some pop and brings some explosiveness to the edge. And then we're adding a true CB1 with Emmanuel Forbes. So we're taking a good defense. We're elevating them even further. So I really want to see where we go with that.
Also, just a note on Forbes, because I've seen around the interwebs that he pulled up a little bit the other day, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he missed a game in college. So I know that was one of the odd things, right? About people are very concerned about his size and what does that mean for him. But a guy that doesn't miss a game in the SEC, I don't care what his size is. Sign me up. I'll do that all the time. I'm with you. I know the fan base has been clamoring for a long time to do one of these inner team, the scrimmages here. So I'm super excited about that. And I think you're right. What's interesting is, and I'm not sure, I mean, I know that they signed Barton. They like Barton. Adam, I know you're concerned about the Jamin Davis situation, and maybe we're not paying enough attention to what's going on there.
Yeah, no, I just say, although, on the outside, it's okay, reckless driving, whatever, but these are the kind of things that, this is the NFL. If your head's not in the game, if you're not concentrated, this is big boy stuff here. And this is the kind of thing, like I said, we keep hearing now the last couple of days about Kaliki Hudson. He's really been impressing them. Barton's really been stepping up, in a leadership role. Before Jamin Davis knows it, he could find himself in a rotational role until he shows something more. So I think, there is a lot of level of concern for, a guy that they drafted in the top 20 who's really, many thought he would be the Mike linebacker of the future. You don't draft, too many strong, weak side outside linebackers to, the first round that early. So I think there's a lot of pressure on him here stepping up, and it's just not starting the right way because, getting 8 days in jail rejected already. Again, when I told you guys, I heard that the judge wants to see something closer to 30 days. He thinks the offers aren't legit. The second time in 2 months, he's had reckless driving in Virginia. We all know how strict it is there. And so, it's just not a good way to start off the season because Jack Del Rio, he's a cool coach from everybody I hear, but he's not going to put up with too much bullshit, and right now with Jamin Davis, it's like he was in the car behind DeShazer Everett when his girlfriend died. So he still hasn't learned, these are a pattern of things that you start to see with players who, everyone said he's a boomer bust candidate. Right now, he's trending in the wrong direction. So, hopefully, he can step up. But I'm glad that, I'm hearing good things about Barton and, saying that Hudson's looking night and day. So those are the kind of things, at least I like to hear in the linebacker situation, which is probably the second concern behind the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm excited about Barton. Interestingly enough, he came here for less money.
Yep.
For the opportunity to wear that green dot. I know they're excited about how he works in the run game. And Khaleke Hudson, I was really excited when they drafted him out of Michigan.
Yep.
And had been surprised that he had not been able to find his way onto the field more than just on a special teams role. I'm excited that maybe he'll be able to finally get to where I thought maybe he could be. And I know they did. I mean, I know they were high on him and excited for his potential when they got here. George, to me, if we're ranking mistakes by Ron Rivera, and I think that Jamin Davis pick, to me, there were a bunch of ways to go that I think would have been so much more beneficial for this team. Imagine you trade up, you took one extra first round pick for the Vikings that were right behind. No, not the Bears right behind us to trade up for Justin Fields. To me, that was a big mistake. The other big mistake in the first round of that draft, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the Vikings traded up a couple spots and took Christian Darrisaw.
That was my guy too.
He was available at that pick. They
Yeah.
could have had him there. And then the linebacker, I think, that from Notre Dame, who was similar to Jamin Davis, actually a lot of people had him higher, correct, was close to that range where they picked him the second. They could have easily acquired him that way. To me, those were the biggest mistakes. And when we're now talking about what are some of the biggest needs on the team, replacing Charles Leno is not the biggest need on the team. But what happens if Charles Leno goes down?
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's kind of got that Morgan Moses thing going, right, where he posts most games. But, relying on that in the NFL, good luck. So, to me, that's one of the big things is that year they could have really done some things they didn't. And it's unfortunate that we're here where we are now with Jamin Davis. George, who does play backup left tackle?
I think right
goes down.
I think right now they're pegging it as Cornelius Lucas, and he's a pretty solid player. But
I like Lucas, but
yeah, about to say I think you nailed it. I guess maybe it's that old linebacker in with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. They saw Jamin Davis. They saw the athletic attributes, and they thought they could potentially, I could coach him up. Some coaches, I'm not saying they're arrogant, but everyone has that. I can do this. I'm a good teacher. I can make it happen. They probably saw that in Jamin Davis and potentially reached a little bit. I know all of us dive deep into it. I know Adams. He's all about the scouting as well. I had him as a second-round pick. I had Jamin Davis as a second-round pick. I was concerned about his experience. I think he played 14 games at Kentucky, which isn't even a major program, and you are concerned. You saw the running downhill and that fast speed. He is athletic, but there were some holes in his game. And then going along with that, Doug, a lack of attention to the offensive line. I actually like Ron Rivera. I think he's a good leader of men, but if he did have a flaw, it would be the neglect that he's giving to the offensive line. He's not investing in it, and there seems to be like overcorrection or almost like a misevaluation of the offensive line with but Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell and thought they would fit there at the guard position. We're missing that. I love Darrisaw. Darrisaw was my number one pick. You can pull up the receipts on Twitter. Darrisaw was my number one guy. I liked Owusu Karamoa as well, and they could have got him in the second round. So there was a little bit of a reach there, and I think we're feeling it. And even this year, I think Quan Martin's going to be an exceptional player. I truly do. I think we talked about it before. Bobby, he is a more athletic, smarter Bobby McCain. He's a guy that could play the slot. He could try back into free safety. He's gonna be a chess piece. Later on as he develops as more of a veteran presence. But we could have. But I know they wanted Steve Avila. I know they were looking at him at a guard position. Other people like that. If they solidified the offensive line, that would have gone a longer way towards protecting your rookie. So I'm going to consider Sam Howell a rookie quarterback. He only played one game, so you want to protect your investment there. So I agree. It was a missed opportunity, and I wish we did something different. But hindsight 2020, you can't always hit them all. So that's why it's called the draft.
and you'll willingly pay the money if how it turns out to be
Yeah.
QB1. But the unfortunate thing is you're still like on a reset timeline in 2 years with him, right? Because you don't get the 5th year option. He sat a year. This will be his 2nd year. If he plays really well, I mean, right? So it's unfortunate that even though if they hit on it the right way you want to on this rookie contract,
The window's
they
smaller.
Yeah.
they've missed most of it.
Mhm.
Like I said, not that you want that. It reminds me strikingly of Jalen Hurts with Philadelphia, at least the way it kind of the timeline plays out. The difference there is Philadelphia routinely has one of the better offensive lines in the league. I'm not mad at the Norwell signing that much. He had been good still. I mean, I think he was only a year or two removed from an all-pro year in Jacksonville. So I understood why they did that. It didn't work. And that's the one when you swing and miss, when you take all the swings, you're gonna miss some. And Ron's definitely had some. I think maybe he's had more hits here. Certainly at certain positions, right? Like, I mean, Ron came in and fixed the safety and the defensive back situation immediately, which hasn't been solved here since Sean Taylor and Ryan Clark were here, which, by the way, they should have never gotten rid of Ryan Clark.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is interesting, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this. We've been having these conversations in the group chats about the tight end position, particularly with Logan Thomas maybe not at full health again. And again, I'll say for those that scream about Logan Thomas and tight end 1, he's never had more than 600 yards here in a season. So it's not like he has had these memorable seasons that we're all hoping we'll get back. He's had memorable moments, and he has traits that work. I think they've done a good job theoretically of drafting tight ends to come in and make differences. I think people are sleeping on John Bates. I will again go on record here on this podcast and any other podcast that I end up going on. I think Bates is in for a big year. They plan on running the ball a lot. He's the best blocking tight end on the team, which means just by sheer workload, he's going to be out there more than some of the tight ends that aren't blockers, including Logan Thomas, including Cole Turner, and the undrafted free agent. That being said, so I think he's in for maybe a four touchdown, 550 yards, like a really nice tight end 2 season. What they need is Cole Turner to be able to stretch the seam and get the ball down the field. That's to me, I would guess, Adam, maybe by the halfway point of the season, we're looking more as Cole Turner tight end 1, John Bates tight end 2, with a very even workload. How do you see the tight end room shaking out?
Well, like you said, the blocking is going to be a big deal for Eric Bieniemy because let's not forget the former running back. He wants to run the ball, and I think Brian Robinson has been one of the biggest stories in camp. I just wrote an article about it, and he's really come out and showing that he's night and day as a route runner. So he's making a case to not get pulled off the field. Like we've seen him rotate backs, but with Eric Bieniemy, he liked to use McKinnon, and then like as the season got later, out of need, Pacheco. So I think that's where you see him and Gibson. So I think with the tight ends, Thomas, this is not a good early look. These are the kind of things the calf, what's the thing was, I think it was a calf, that tend to linger, especially it's coming off a knee injury. These are the kind of things you see off of, knee repairs, not necessarily the knee getting hurt, but, other, lower body issues, when they're trying to compensate. So I think, like you said, Bates is a good blocker. Even though he could probably be a tight end 2, he'll probably be getting more snaps than any of the tight ends. By the end of the season, I expect to see him with the most snaps. But Turner, and I said to you guys before the show, to me, if he stays healthy, that's all it is, because what he did at Nevada, like he made that whole offense, like he's the most underrated player on that team because his quarterback, I think the Eagles got him, like only reason he got picked was because of him. Cole Turner just scores touchdowns. So, I think that, he's the kind of guy you get him involved in the red zone, 6'6", good hands. I think you have him and Bates as in, that 12 personnel option. I think that, they're going to get a lot of looks this year because our receivers are going to be a lot of attention on McLaurin. I know that Eric Bieniemy is going to use him a ton. Same with Dotson. They're going to be, both of those guys are going to be used a ton. So they're going to see a lot of, quarters and shift looks to their side. So it's going to open up the field for the tight end. So I think, Logan Thomas, I don't think they're going to trust him to be, blocking the majority of the time. The same with Turner. So Bates, I agree. I think Bates, when I scouted him, soft hands, really good blocker, and a guy that's actually faster than he looks on tape. So I think he's going to have a big year. And if he doesn't, that's going to definitely be, a testament to how good the run game's going, because he's going to be a big factor.
And just jump on this, so maybe you guys will push back, but I know there's a lot of talk about the Commanders had a missed opportunity by not drafting a tight end this year, and there were some awesome tight ends around, like Musgrave, Kincaid.
There was.
The Raiders tight end, I'm trying to forget his name, the Notre Dame guy. What's his name again? Do you guys remember top of your head?
Meyer.
Yeah, Meyer. Exactly right. So Michael Meyer, he was awesome as well. I can see where there was a potential missed opportunity to pursue them, but I'm not going to kill the Commanders for doing so, because after Meyer was the most complete tight end. He's kind of like a Jason Witten type. Kincaid's supposed to be the guy's burner. Musgrave's supposed to be a burner as well. So there is some upside. They don't have any blocking capabilities there. But in my opinion, like, let's say, this is before Armani Rodgers got hurt. Going into training camp, there's Armani Rodgers, there's Curtis Hodges, Cole Turner, Bates, Thomas. That's a pretty diverse mixed group, right? Logan Thomas is a veteran. Bates is the blocking guy. Cole Turner is a high upside, big bodied guy. Armani Rodgers, that converted quarterback, is really athletic. There was some intrigue in the tight end position, so I can see why Washington decided to explore other options there. Like, maybe they could have gone offensive line. It would have been awesome to have a great elite tight end, but I feel like it would have almost been a luxury considering the wide receivers that we have. So maybe go offensive line, but the one benefit that I see about not going tight end is our defensive backs are stacked, man, and they're so diverse and they're very versatile. So you got to pick and choose. You can't have a complete team. If you do have a complete team, that means you're doing it right. You're drafting right. So good. Hopefully that'll be us in a couple of years, but I do see some deficits, and I think collectively our tight ends will be okay. I think Thomas is going to be pretty solid. I like the upside of Cole Turner. We've been looking for that for years. Hope they can stay healthy. And Bates is going to be I agree with you, Doug. He's going to be a little sleeper pick. He's going to be on the field a lot more than people think. And I think he's going to get a couple of touchdowns here or there.
Yeah, they use that word all the time, like workload and target shares. And he's going to be out there so much. Inevitably, he's just going to be there for passes to catch when they, particularly on the play action and the RPO stuff that Adam was mentioning earlier. I'm curious how the NFC East shakes out this year. It has been each of the team, all three teams offensively outside of the Giants are very similar to me, and the defenses are being built to kind of mimic what they do well, with good tight ends that can catch, mostly, really good receiving cores and adequate backs. The Giants have an interesting thing that they've got going on up there, right? Because if they decide to come in and just sledgehammer you, teams like Washington, even though we have that, you are putting a lot of faith in those four guys up front.
Yep.
Because they're not built to stop a guy like Saquon Barkley. If they don't stop him up front, George, does that concern you at all that we're heading into, everybody pivots at some point, right? Like everybody starts doing the same thing. And then all of a sudden it will take a team, maybe like the Giants, that says, all right, fine. If you're going to put 5 DBs out there, then we will just start slamming the ball with this big behemoth of a back that we have. How do you think that ends up playing out, George? Because most of these defenses are built to stop passing offenses now.
I think it's very interesting, but I'm not concerned, because I do think that Washington does have depth along defensive line. That we have Ridgeway, we have Phil Mathis as well, so we could do that 5 defensive line set if we really need to go that route. Obviously, we want more of a linebacker that goes downhill and could stop the run. So that's a concern. Are we going to have someone that consistently stops Saquon Barkley? But I will take the versatility. I'll take the diversity in the backfield, because I feel like the high-end teams, the Buffalo Bills, the Chiefs, those teams that are going to be going deep in the playoffs, they're the ones that are going to basically we're more equipped to go against that. In regard to the NFC East as a whole, there's question marks across the board. I mean, the Giants, they don't really they have one of the weaker wide receiving cores in the NFL. Like, they have a whole bunch of slot wide receivers, but who's going to be their big wide receiver? I say Hodgins, I guess. I mean, or like maybe Sterling Shepard will be that dominant wide receiver on the outside. Dallas, they lost Kellen Moore, and I know that's kind of like people kind of joke about that, but I think Kellen Moore's pretty damn smart, honestly. I think he's going to do a really good job in Los Angeles. So there's a deficit there. And then Philadelphia, I mean, Philadelphia's a great team, but you have to catch lightning in the bottle. And last year was their year, and they should have won the Super Bowl last year because they were very competitive, up like 14 points in the Super Bowl. Sometimes, if you don't grab your shot when it's there, things happen. It could be an injury here next year, something might happen. So like, I wouldn't rule anything out. I think Washington's gonna be pretty damn competitive. So I think the biggest thing we talked about offline is going to be our offensive line. We really just need to protect. Gotta make sure Howell's safe. I think our defensive line will be strong. And the last thing I'll say is our defense, it added Chase Young, added Emmanuel Forbes. That could really elevate us another level. I think we're going to cause some chaos this year. I'm pretty excited about it.
I think it's important to remember, when you have a season like the defense had for Washington last year, and you get into like that top 5 range, and you're really competing, and people are starting to say, okay, will they regress a little bit? And I'll say 2 things. Will they level off some because they were so hot at the end of, like, in that middle of last year? To your point, George, they were 28th in the league last year in takeaways. So even if some of the other stats that they're really good with, like their third down, getting off on third down last year was like astronomically, historically good, right? Like, so that probably will come down some.
Yeah.
But if those turnover numbers go up, then I think so. To me, the defense ought to be even. Adam, I want to go back to the middle linebacker spot for a little bit because you said something that I thought was important about how much time they may be asking for. We know that they've already said 8 isn't enough. Purely from a football standpoint, though, the Commanders don't seem very concerned about it. I mean, we watched the Eagles just a couple of days ago sign 2 middle linebackers who I think could still play. I mean, I like Miles Jack. Commanders have shown no concerns at all. Maybe they don't think, maybe they think whatever's going to happen will happen off season, but it feels like he's due for at least a game suspension by the NFL, right? Interesting that the Commanders haven't shown any interest in adding depth there to the linebacker position.
Yeah, like we saw the injuries, we saw Wabata, we've seen a couple other things, and they're signing like another defensive tackle, another punter, another long snapper. It's true, they're not really showing too much concern. And,
signed another safety today.
Yeah. And, you talk about they're talking better things about Hudson, but again, behind Hudson and Barton, who are we talking about? There's really no depth there. And again, I'm a broken record. This just is telling me, expect a ton of, 5-6 defensive back packages, even on rundowns, because Curl can play that role as a linebacker, if they can get, Hudson mixed in. Okay. But I think I understand why now that they drafted Martin in the 2nd round. I think an offensive lineman would have been a really wise move, but I think we've invested all this money on the defensive line. Cam Curl, I think it's coming. I really just get this feeling he's going to get a contract before the season. I think because he can play multiple roles. So you're paying a guy that, you don't have to go get a, high priced linebacker, and you're going to have a guy that's solid at, safety that can move around. So I think that they're banking on the defensive backs playing a lot of time. The Buffalo nickel, I think we're going to see variations of it because that's what I noticed. I was hard on Del Rio, but the last year, it started to morph. His defense is becoming more innovative, and I'm expecting. And again, I heard he's been like looking at a lot of other systems, and that to me, that's what I love hearing. And I think that you're going to really see this Buffalo nickel really get more creative right now because all of a sudden, Percy Butler is another name that's really emerging as a guy they feel really comfortable. So him, Forrest, Curl, Martin. Then you have your defensive backs. I think that they're going to do a lot of creative things. And I think if you can have a guy like Curl that can come down the box, you're not losing anything in the run game. So I understand why linebacker is becoming just less important with Washington more than anybody in the league, but it's becoming less important around the league.
And I will apologize to Jack Del Rio on this again, because 4 years ago when they got here, through whatever it is now, that him and Ron were both antiquated and their game had passed them.
Yep.
I will own up to that. I said it. I can't back in the moment. It felt like it. But, they're kind of leading the charge now on this new kind of defensive frontier. I'm excited about it too. It's the only reason that I'm not as concerned about the linebacker spot because they don't seem to be.
Yeah.
But it's, and the other beauty that Jack Del Rio has, and I don't think it gets talked about enough, and it's why I think they continue to pay, they don't ever have to blitz. I think they were the lowest team in the league last year on blitz rates because they can get home with 4.
Yeah.
Which makes their blitzing even more impactful when they do decide. I know, Adam, you'd like to see him blitz just a little bit more than he does. But that's one of the beauties to not having to, because then you get to put everybody back into coverage and really move some things around. So I think they get a lot of credit for that. The other thing that I think maybe we're not paying enough attention to this year, just because not enough of it has gone by yet, really. But Emory Hunt, when he came on Friday from CBS Sports, told me, keep an eye on Ron. This is the first time that he's really been able to be Ron Rivera since he's gotten there.
Right.
People that he had talked to that know Ron said he feels like, you can tell he feels lighter this year. He's playing with house money.
Yeah.
You know, if they have a great year and he stays, great. If they lose and he's out, I think he's at peace with that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see the differences in Ron this year, and maybe we actually get to see the guy that you could tell the players get. I mean, they love Ron and want to battle for him. So hopefully that's another thing that uplifts and makes the team better. One of those things that doesn't show up on paper.
Yeah.
And we talked about it before, guys. Like I've said it multiple times. I love the dynamic of our coaching staff. Like I was right there with you guys. You know, antiquated. I wish we had more of a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, forward-thinking, offensive-minded coach and things like that. But I like the dynamic that we have this year because they all are kind of suited to their strengths, right? Ron Rivera is a leader of men. He's a culture guy. He brings people together. He instills like a team family work ethic, which I think is working pretty well. Eric Bieniemy has something to prove as well. An offensive mind coming from the Chiefs, coming from Andy Reid, who I think's the utmost of, high with him. I love Andy Reid. And then Jack Del Rio is starting to come along on himself. He's actually being creative as well. So if Ron can be the CEO and kind of bring everyone together and kind of give autonomy to the coordinators, I think Washington's in a great position there.
And it's, to me, again, I mentioned house money, Adam. It's like, to me, Bieniemy's got more on the line here this year than Ron does. If Ron gets fired as a head coach, that's 2 stints for him. He was the head coach we needed at the time. I think he could move on feeling pretty good about what he accomplished here. Bieniemy's got, he's got everything to lose.
Yeah, it's like somebody, it's like a company, like a guy that's in his last year, consider retirement. And then another guy's a new guy, that's, on the board. Like he's got to establish himself. He got 1 year. He didn't get a 3-year deal, to come be the OC, but, he was made assistant coach, at the same time. So they're giving him every chance to succeed. And I think, with Ron Rivera, exactly. I think, with what he's been through over the last couple of years, that's something a coach might go through in 20 years, So, I think dude, not only is he a piece, he's made a lot of money, doing what he does. So I think with Eric Bieniemy, the seat is primed for, no matter what happens, as long as it's, we're seeing, 7-8 wins. I think that situation at minimum is primed for Bieniemy to take over as the head coach. I think if they see an offense that's, clicking, but there's issues with the offensive line, we can literally point our finger to where the issue is. I think, that speaks volumes for him, that what he's done for the quarterback development, and he would make the most sense to be the next head coach. So yeah, it's not just our team. If it doesn't work out with us, it's teams around the league that, he at least, to get an offensive coordinator position, that's a big deal. I feel like a couple decades ago, that wasn't, something that was so highly coveted. It was like the older guys that were bouncing around became the OCs. Now it's like, who's the more innovative mind? So coming from the Andy Reid coaching tree, I expect a lot. And the difference of his other disciples in Kansas City is, I think this guy has the ability to run a team. That's what I like about Eric Bieniemy. Like, he knows how to run practices better than anyone I've seen in Washington since Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, we need that too.
It might be premature, it might be early, but the way he's running stuff and the no bullshit mentality, calling them out of the huddle. And the best thing we're seeing is if they're going too slow, he's calling it back. We always see these delay games, these stupid situational. He makes a priority of practicing situational football. They talked about in the Super Bowl when the running back was on space. If you get free, go down. Like, these are the things that we take it for granted as fans, but these are the things that coaches aren't doing. They're more concerned with coaching their scheme and install than literally teaching them situational football. So I think that's what separates Eric Bieniemy, and then to have so much on the line. Again, I think it's putting a lot of faith in Sam Howell. I have more faith in the potential system and the talent we have in place that exactly. It's like a middle of the pack at worst, but I think, we're going to be surprised how good Eric Bieniemy is, because I think this is one of the situations where it's like a fine wine being aged and it's just, ready to be uncorked. I really do.
And one of the things I think also to bring up while we talk about Bieniemy and the pace that they've moved in practice, one of the important things about pace is it's not just about going fast, but getting out of the huddle and up to the line so that you can see what's going on with the defense. You can get in and out of a play if you need to. Like, just because you're moving fast doesn't mean that you can't use the majority of the play clock. It just gives you more options at the line. So, I mean, that to me, that sense of urgency is just as important as anything else at this point. I keep hearing about Brissett. Why, George? Why are people talking about Brissett?
I'll go back. I'll do Brissett in a second, but let me kind of touch on Bieniemy real quick.
Yeah.
To Adam's point, I love the efficiency and the discipline, because at NFL, everyone's talented. Every team is talented. Everyone has some skills. And how many times we watch games where like we lost because of a bad penalty, or like we lost by 3 points, or like just being inefficient. So I like the fact that we are disciplined. I think it is going to provide an edge. And what I'm hoping for is if we get out of the huddle quickly enough with that tempo that you're alluding to, Doug, is like, I'm sure you guys remember, like it was famous that Sean McVay was in Jared Goff's ear, like going into the Super Bowl and kind of coaching him. Yes. This is what you're seeing on the defense. This is the first look I want you to do. This is the defense that you're looking at. It'll be great that he can help out and boost up Sam Howell in regard to that. Going back to Brissett, it's because Ron doesn't shut it down, man. Like, I don't know why Ron needs to shut it down, because everybody knows it's like the worst kept secret in like the entire NFL that Sam Howell is getting the best opportunity to be the quarterback for week 1. And we all wanted that to happen, but I think maybe it's that old school mentality. Maybe he wants to put the pressure on Howell, and he wants to make sure that, hey, like you're not given this opportunity to take the opportunity kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think there's any opportunity at all. And like, to be honest with you, like I don't want to see Brissett. The only Brissett that I want to see is him holding a clipboard, coaching Sam Howell on the sideline. I want to ride it out, burn it. If Sam Howell can't if let's say Sam Howell is having he's struggling, just push through. Let's see if let's give him a good 8, 10, 12 game evaluation, see what happens. And if he can't do it, oh, well, we'll reset. Now we know the answer. So next year we can invest in a different quarterback. There shouldn't be like 4 games here, 3 games here. He's growing. No, ride it all out, push through the growing pains. Let's see what happens. And, maybe next year is a fresh reset and we'll see how that goes, but hopefully not. I like the way things are going. I want Sam Howell to do well, but, I don't see the benefit of playing Brissett, in my opinion.
But bottom line, you're not hearing it from the man that matters. Eric Bieniemy is not saying it.
That's true.
He's got full autonomy over the offense. He's not sitting there saying that. Finally, Ron comes out and gives an explanation because they discussed it in-house. I kind of feel like he wants to be still more involved in that, because he wanted to be with Turner last year. But make no mistake, it's Eric Bieniemy, and of course they're going to get him some reps with the starters because they don't want to be caught with their pants down. But yeah, neither of these guys are going to ride their short-term careers on Jacoby Brissett. I don't care how much they paid him. This is an emergency situation backup. So I think exactly, like if people talk about 1-4, we could see it now more like 1-8. That's a situation maybe. But even in that scenario, unless
that's right,
3 to 4 interceptions a game, you want to see what you have, because you at that point new ownership, they're building. It starts to be the offense is scrapped. Your defense is getting paid. So it's not a rebuild. But I don't think that, especially going into the draft next year with the quarterback talent, this is going to be probably better than the last couple of years as far as QB talent. Not even the first one. Everyone talks about Williams from USC. There's other guys. So I think that they'll ride out to see what they have. And if it totally looks like they failed, then you reset. But otherwise, Brissett, again, it's summertime. Like these reports, it's not easy. I agree. I think there's plenty to write about. It's my favorite time of year. But I think as a whole, you just start to see it like the news. A story comes up, they grab it, and it just gets recycled, and until someone's like, did you hear that Jacoby Brissett is challenging for the job, when that was not even what happened.
Gotcha. I agree
too. All right, we're going to start breaking down next week. We're going to start getting into the division rivals and take a look at them. And that, man, it's football's back. Real football on Friday. Super excited about it. And we'll be back on Monday to discuss it. Thanks, fellas.
Take it easy, guys.
All right, guys. That was good, guys. Freestyled 40 minutes.